mic on?
If you drive to a rental, like a Blockbuster, and you peruse the aisles and you find whatever movie you're trying to watch, you are committing to that movie for the evening.
Do you remember, like, you'd go to get that movie, and then there'd be, like, no VHS tape behind it. Like, oh, someone else from town came and rented that movie. It's in someone else's VHS player right now.
Yep.
And then the whole, like, Be Kind, Rewind thing. See, you'd have to rewind the film to get back. You'd have to pay it forward to the next guy.
I did grow up on DVDs. So, yeah.
I hate this generational gap between you and
Well,
I.
welcome to our podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast with a grown man and a child.
We're happy you're here. We live very different lives, Josh, you and I think that's...
When you're done with this podcast, remember to rewind it to the beginning. So when you watch it again. But yeah, dude, that was, like, let's go out, let's get a movie, let's get a let's get a pizza, and let's watch. Anyway. All right, welcome to the pod. That was a nice little nostalgic trip down memory lane that just brought me to my parents' basement in, like, the mid-90s, and, like, that's good stuff. Anywho, what are we talking about today, pal?
We're talking about being intentional with our time.
As we just wasted 3.5 minutes of this podcast.
Tough start.
Woo!
Tough start. All right. Nobody should listen to anything that we ever have to say.
Intentional with your time. Starting now. All right. Here we go. Intentional with your time. Let's get it.
This is something that I am trying to get better at. You know, everyone has 24 hours in a day, obviously, and some people use their time much, much wiser than I do.
Word.
So, yeah. What are some important things that come to mind right away when someone's saying, you know, what can I do to be more intentional with my time?
Well, like, figure out what the outcome, like, what is your outcome, and then, like, identify, like, what's important and what's not important. It's kind of like that like celery test. So if you, like, just go to the grocery store when you're hungry with no real game plan, like, you'll throw some Oreos in there, you're like, oh, this looks good, whatever, you know. But if you go there and, like, okay, well, we're on a diet and this is what's important, then it's much easier to look past the Oreos and whatever. So there's a ton of things like vying for our attention and time all the time.
So you're talking about making a list.
Checking it twice.
That drives me nuts. I hate making a list and going to the grocery store, but you're absolutely right. Camera on Josh. Well, he shakes his face.
That is a powerful take right there. I didn't see that coming.
I'll say it, dude.
Like full palm in the air. Like, I hate it. It's like, dude, what are you talking about?
Me and my wife will go to the grocery store and she's like, we're not going until we make a list. And I throw an absolute tantrum.
What is that idea? Or, like, you know, you go to the gym and it's like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, what's the goal? What are you trying to do? You trying to improve your cardio? You trying to put on some muscle? You trying to lose some weight? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. You know, and then it helps you kind of decipher. So that way you can decide what you want to do and then commit to it. And then from there, like, so for us, it's easy. Like, you know, we want to sell X amount of houses or whatever. So it's like, okay. So every morning we know that we got to come in and, like, start working on our, you know, practice our skills so that when we get our at-bats, we're talking with somebody that might want to buy or sell a house. Like, we know how to handle that conversation. We don't just puke on ourselves and waste that opportunity.
Right.
And then 2, we got to take, you know, block the next 2 hours to be reaching out to people and talking with them, you know. So you then time block that time. And then 2, a lot of what time, like, being intentional with your time is to me, and it's very difficult for me as, like, a recovering yes man, but, like, every time you say yes to something, you are then saying no to something else.
Yep.
Right? So, like, even that little, like, hey, got a minute? You got a minute?
No.
You got a minute?
No, actually, I don't.
But it's like, and it's tough.
Oh, it is.
It's very tough because, like,
this is one of the things that I really struggle with. And
Fix that for you. Keep talking.
I feel like Splint's trying to work his way into this.
What's this guy's problem right now?
This guy's trying to.
All right.
Camera on Dusty's butt.
But yeah, that's one of the toughest things is saying no. So I mean, if it's in your calendar, like, do what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, one would be putting it in the calendar, and then 2 would be honoring that time block. So like for me, every day over the noon hour, like it says BJJ in my calendar every day from like 11:45 to 1:15.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian
Just so
Jiu-Jitsu.
there's No confusion to what Josh just said.
Nothing weird. Nothing weird. And then, but even on there in the calendar, it's blue because I want to get my blue belt. And then once I get my blue belt, it'll change. It'll be purple as a reminder. Like next up is you get your purple. Anyway, but it can be on your calendar all you want. And like a lot of us, that's like our first step is like we get all juiced about what we put on our calendar. Like, yeah, I'm going to do this and this. But it's like if you don't do it, you don't, you know. So then when somebody stops back here at 9:30 to like, hey, got a minute for the team, or like one of the lenders or somebody, another agent comes back, like another piece of it is like teaching people how to treat you. So like honoring that time block. So like I need to be better about like when someone asks if I got a minute at 11:30, it's like no, because I got to go, because there was like a 2-month stretch where I hardly went to jiu-jitsu because like every day you'd be doing that, and then you look up and it's 12:15 or 12:30, and it's like, well, that's a day. So then, I said yes to them, so I had to say no to that. Which in hindsight, if I could have said like, hey, can we, can this wait for an hour and 15 when I get back, and then we could easily, and then I could have, because there's very few in our world. There's like very few real estate emergencies, Like
well, and like in any job, like there's stuff that little stuff that comes up. So like one thing that I've learned is to put in your calendar time for that stuff. So like in my calendar, it'll say swim in the crazy. So like that's that time to answer any emails or someone has a question, whatever it is.
100%, or like put in like deep work. I'll just have that in there. Like, oh, I got to work on my P&L. That's not something where someone comes like your profit and loss statement. So if that's someone comes in like, hey, got a minute, when you're in the middle of like looking at receipts and doing all this, like that's another thing they talk about. If somebody interrupts you from some of that deep work, like you not only miss that time that you lost there, but then it takes an extra 10, 15 minutes to like really get back in the zone of where you were at.
Yep.
But that's like, you watch The Office?
Yeah. It's been a while.
Where Pam's like, Michael's like, what do I got on the calendar? She's like, it just says free space. And then she's like, it's like, fine, we'll move that in tomorrow. And move that in tomorrow. And she's like, well, tomorrow you've got whatever. It's like the same thing. You did a different name for it.
I do remember that part, yeah.
It's like move free play into tomorrow. It's like, oh. But that's a part of it too. And like I feel like I know I have feel that and have felt that in doing what we do. But it's like and then like respecting the process. You know what I mean? Like respect the process. Because as soon as you kind of get into your groove, it's like, well, as soon as I'm doing this, I feel like I should be doing that. It's like, no, like you take some time up front, like stop, really picture like what's an ideal, like what is my goal, and then what's an ideal day to get there. And it might not be like an everyday thing. Like we keep our mornings pretty structured. Because that's like we talked in the last pod about like modeling what other successful people do. And every single training I've ever been to talks about, devoting time to lead generate and find business. So it's like, well, okay, that's what we got to do. But then there's going to be time for other stuff, more creative stuff. So like we've now moved some stuff because we want to bump up our social media. So then and like the content stuff. So now we've like made that a priority. So now every Friday morning is like content day. But then but that's the other thing. If you have your, rabbit hole. But if you have a calendar,
you know what I mean?
Like they say, if you erase something, you have to replace it.
Yeah.
So we erased lead generation Friday morning, and then we put content there. So now we had to take that time block and put it. I think we put it like Tuesday afternoons or something.
Well, and that's what's so cool about like Google Calendar is super easy that way. Like you can put, however many, whatever you need to do in that day. And then every morning you can come in and be like, okay, here's when I can do it. Mm-hmm. And actually like plan out your day and do it by priority. And I mean, make it fun. Like, you get to create your day.
Yeah.
Like that's.
And I find like that's much more energizing, even if you have the exact same day.
Right.
But if you have a day where you set the intention for like you have that day where you just kind of come in and you're just running around all day and you feel like you did a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, you're like, what did I do?
Right.
You know, and then you have other days where you're like, yeah, I'm going to get up. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to hammer all this stuff out. And like, even if you do the exact same stuff, like you mentally, like on the day where everything was done intentionally, you're like, yeah,
Yep.
I crushed that.
That reminds me too, like
versus I survived.
I recently got a planner and it has like check boxes and I can add stuff that I have to do that day. So it's really cool to check stuff off.
Get that dopamine hit right there. Like
you're rewarding yourself. Like, oh, yeah. I'm the man.
Oh yeah.
Who's your daddy? No, but and that's
Spencer.
that's another thing too, is like writing your tasks down, like the priority stuff that you have to do. Austin recently, did you watch that video that he sent?
Oh, I never watch anything kid sends.
Well, they talked about it in bold too. Like this guy is like, you know, I can make your team like way more productive, and the owner is like, well, what do I have to pay you? And he's like, nothing. You just after 3 months, if it works, you can pay me whatever you think it was worth. And all he did was he sat down with each of the people on the team, and he's like, I want you, before you leave every day, to write down your top priority tasks for the next day. Mm-hmm. And then when you get in, like, you have that plan for the day. And if you didn't complete a task, well, then that goes to number 1 on your priorities for the next day.
Yep.
So, like, just having that plan, I think, is huge for being intentional with your time.
Well, that keeps the energy up, because again, that's you being on purpose and on fire about it, as opposed, it's just that we talk about that all the time, being proactive versus reactive, you know. But then to that point, like another good book is or a saying is like, called Eat That Frog.
Yeah.
So it's like basically front loading your day, like put the toughest thing first. So the idea is like, if you had to eat a frog every day, like it'd be best to just get it out of the way. Like first thing, like, all right, gulp. So that's what, you know, then that was me eating the frog. But that's also why we structure like our lead gen when we do. Yep. It's like, okay, well, let's practice what we're going to say and who, you know, get clear on who we're going to talk to, and then go do it. Because like for me, my willpower is like my battery on my phone. Like in the morning, like it's green, ready to rock. And then even at like 2:00, it's just blinking red. I'm like, I'm not about to, I don't care to.
Yeah, we're back on caffeine though.
Yeah. We're back on caffeine. Shout out caffeine.
I owe you so much, caffeine. I couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah, turns out caffeine is a big part of this whole thing.
Yep. Well, then like another thing I've noticed too is when you have that super productive day and you're intentional with your time, it's so much easier to go home and just like then you're being present at home.
Right.
Like you're not worried about all the stuff that you didn't get done, and you can really be where your feet are.
100%, because that's such a common thing. Like as soon as I'm in the office, like, man, I should be at home. Man, I should be at home. And then as soon as you're at home, you're anxious because you didn't, like, man. But that goes back to like, you set the intention, you set the goal, you whatever, you create the plan, and then you work the plan. So you work the plan, so then you leave here at 3 or 4, like, yep, I did it. Or like you decide like, what would it look like if I absolutely crushed it today? Mm-hmm. And then you do that, and then you go home. Now you're home.
Right.
And then you got to do the same thing at home too, you know, which is tougher to do because it's like you're dealing with humans and not, you know, goals and spreadsheets and stuff like that, but being intentional with that time as well.
Oh, that's important.
100% or more so,
yeah,
but it's tough to quantify. Like,
right.
you know, in that mastermind I was in yesterday, we talked about like everybody wants to be a good dad, right? Well, what does that look like? Exactly. You know? Mm-hmm. So then getting intentional about that. So does it mean spending one afternoon a month interrupted with each kid or something, you know, in addition to just being around? It's okay. Well, then you put that in the calendar and then you do it.
Yep.
You know, and then all of a sudden you don't have to be, you and your spouse can be like, hey, what would it look like if I was like an awesome dad, you know? And then you create the plan and then you work the plan. And then too, part of it has to do with confidence. Like it's easier to say no to somebody or something when you know, like you're in the strength zone, right? Or if you know you're in the zone. Because if you're not, then you're like, yeah, I could. Okay, yeah. Otherwise, like, no, like feel like a lot of successful people are very obviously intentional with their time, and they don't let people encroach on their time. And that's, yeah. Because if you think, like, imagine like going to meet with like, I don't know, like Elon Musk, like you're just going to go meet with Elon and you're going to get an hour of his time. Like, and you're just going to sit around, like dick around and waste his time. Like, no, his time is very, very valuable. He's got a lot of really important stuff to be doing.
Right. And it's also like so you have that time, but you're not multitasking during that time. Like you're focused on that one thing.
Right.
So like getting really specific in what you want to do in however much amount of time, I think makes you even more productive. Like you're not blocking off your calendar to do 4 different things.
Right. And that's the other thing too. Like, well, one, multitasking is like a myth, basically, they say. So in the book, The One Thing, it talks a lot about like, well, people think they're really good at multitasking. It's like, I don't think that you are. Blackout.
You're just
No.
Blackout Coder. Is that the first one of season 2? That might be. Hey,
that was
we made it a long run, man.
That's a deep one though. Like I forgot where I was for a second. You.
I'll bring you right back. We're talking about multitasking.
Yeah. Dang it.
But are there good multitaskers, or are they just doing all the things that they're doing in a poor way?
Well, we're back.
Okay. We're back, baby.
We're back, baby. But another quote, like, all work expands to fill the time allowed, right? So it's like that miracle before vacation. Like if you had to go on a vacation tomorrow and you're going to be gone for a week and you get to go enjoy yourself, like you'd be wildly productive. And so like if you give yourself, and that's why I've always kind of said, like, especially with the sales staff, like basically your 8:30 to noon for sure is like locked in. But like if you got to make X amount of phone calls and do like whatever, this many things, if you just get really intentional and bang them out, like we don't get paid to be here. You know what I mean? You get paid by the results. So it's like, get super intentional, get it done. Like, get out of here. Go play golf or go meet with somebody or go talk to somebody or go do something else, right. You know?
And then you don't have that guilt.
Yeah.
You know, like I was super intentional with my day. I got what I needed to get done.
Yeah.
Like I can now be where my feet are and enjoy the rest of my day.
Yeah. Having an afternoon off is much different. We're like, versus like, hey, I just came in, I crushed it. Like, and knowing what that means for you. So like for me, it means like getting up in the morning, exercising, reading, praying, getting in, doing the scripts, starting, steering the ship for everybody for the day, whatever, doing some lead gen, putting out some content, talking to some people, whatever, going to jiu-jitsu. And then after that, it's like, it's done. It could be done,
Right.
That's much different than like just coming in and kind of like, hey, how's everybody going? It's just a totally different vibe.
Right. I feel like the biggest pushback people will give on like using a calendar is how it's like, I don't want to. That isn't as freeing. Like
It's a misconception for sure.
Like, I don't want to. For me, when I got really good at using my calendar, exactly like we're talking about, like when I'm done with my day, then it's like.
It's Jocko Willing talks about that all the time. Like discipline equals freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
There it is.
You be super disciplined.
I needed you to spew out some freaking sick quote.
Like that, Jocko?
You're the
like
man.
that, Jocko? Hell yeah!
Okay.
But it's a real thing. Same thing with your money. Like you don't have a budget, you kind of willy nilly, whatever. Like you tell your money to go. You either tell your money where to go, or you wonder where it went. Same thing with your time. Like you tell your time where to go, or you wonder like what happened.
Yeah.
And that's again all goes back to being intentional, but having that like why. Like why are you getting up today, and why does it matter? Well, this is why, and this is so. This is the how, and then the what or whatever. But yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, use a calendar, people.
Get yourself a calendar.
Get yourself a calendar. Be where your feet are. Learn to say no.
Hey.
What else do we talk about?
Hey,
here?
no.
Don't multitask.
No is a complete sentence. Okay. I feel like I heard that. I'm not a grammar.
I don't think so.
I'm not Nelly. I'm not a country grammar guy.
No, you're not.
And yet, I feel like no is a full sentence.
Well, you gotta have a subject and a verb or something. Dustin, turn your mic on. I feel like you know.
Jamie,
he's shaking his head. No.
Jamie, I have no idea. What's a verb?
That's a full. That's a full sentence. I, noun. Maybe not.
Have verb.
Is have a verb?
Yeah, I think
People, place, or thing? No, verb is an action.
I'm verbing all over this.
I feel like this has to end.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Like and subscribe.
Hey, why don't you put
Mindset podcast, not a grammar podcast.
Why don't you put it in your new calendar?
Yep.
To like and subscribe and watch the next episode.
I would do that and be intentional about it and actually do it. Don't just say you're going to do it. And if you don't do it, write it on a sticky note so that you do it tomorrow. Cool. Watch for deer.
Shake a bug. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like that, I know you're going to like this one right here. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Watch for deer and shake a bug.